Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone, back here again today with another episode of After the Buzzer, the show where I recap the NBA games from the night. And we had won Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals, Celtics versus Pacers. A pretty unlikely matchup. I think nobody's surprised the Celtics reached this point. Everybody thought they were going to be one of the top teams in the East coming to the season. They were my pick to go ahead and pretty easily make their way through the East when I made my playoff predictions. As for the Pacers, though, it's a bit more unexpected. Nobody would have picked them to be here, at least I didn't coming into the season. Even going into the playoffs, they had some tough matchups. Teams did get injured, but they beat who was in front of them, had one of the best shooting performances ever in Game 7 against the Knicks, and now face off against a juggernaut Boston team who basically nobody's giving them a chance against. It makes sense that the Celtics are by far the favorites. I mean, they have way more experience. They've got Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, two all-star, all-NBA level guys at the wing position, a backcourt that is one of the best defensively we've ever seen between Jrue Holiday and Derrick White, both of whom actually were just named to all-defensive teams, so that shows you how good they are. Even with Kristaps Porzingis injured, like when he's back, that's another insane piece to add to this team. But even with him hurt, they've still got Al Horford, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, some decent depth. This is a ridiculous Celtics team. They should very easily win the series. And it's not because the Pacers are bad, but the Celtics are just loaded with talent. For these reasons, I picked the Celtics to win the series in 5 games at the end of my Timberwolves versus Mavericks series preview video. Didn't get the chance to make a full breakdown of this matchup, just honestly ran out of time. But Boston in 5 was my pick. I might have gone with a sweep, except for the fact that the Celtics really like to mess around. They basically never show killer instinct. They will always let a team hang around. They will go ahead and blow at least one game. They did it against Miami, did it against Cleveland, both game 2s turning into blowouts. Maybe we'll see the same here against Indiana. And even in games where it feels like they are very clearly the better team, some late game poor execution will ultimately come back to bite them and make it a way more interesting game. And if you want the best possible example of that phenomenon, this is the game to go ahead and witness it. It's funny because the Celtics started off really well. They were up 12-0 to begin this game. Al Horford was hitting some shots. Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown were cooking. The defensive backcourt was looking great. They were firing on all cylinders, but they, after building up that 12-point lead, let the Pacers crawl back a little bit and bring it pretty close. By the time halftime rolled around, the Pacers took the lead for the first time at the beginning of the third, and then the Celtics reminded everybody who they were. They dominated the Pacers for majority of the third quarter, built out a 13-point lead, and this is the moment where if your team is good as the Celtics playing this underdog Pacers squad at home, you need to go ahead and stomp them out right here. They should have been able to build this lead up to 20, really put the game away, and maybe by halfway through the fourth quarter, you can go ahead and rest your starters going into game 2, but instead immediately let the Pacers back in this game, and it was punctuated by a Tyrese Haliburton double clutch fading 3-point shot leaning in to go ahead and bring this down to a 1-point deficit going into the fourth quarter, because for some reason the Celtics like to do literally everything the hard way. And this ends up continuing into the fourth quarter where the Celtics start once again falling apart in the clutch. As good as this team is overall, their end of game execution is still one of the biggest worries in my eyes, because it's not going to kill you always when you're going up against a team like the Pacers or this pretty weak Eastern Conference overall, but if they make the finals and they play like a Timberwolves or a Mavericks, they're going to have to be way better than this, because at the end of this game here, they were turning the ball over a lot, they were taking bad shots. Jayson Tatum, who's supposed to be their guy, went 2 of 7 in the fourth quarter. That's been a big concern, is can Tatum step up and knock down those shots when they need him most? He would end up hitting some buckets later that we'll talk about, but in this fourth quarter, it was not pretty. Luckily enough for the Celtics, the Pacers were also trying to choke the game right back. They went up 3 after a Nembhard bucket with 47 seconds to go, hitting a mid-range shot over Al Horford, which they were just completely targeting Al Horford relentlessly in that mid-range area throughout this game, particularly here late. But the Pacers then, after a Tatum miss, turn the ball over. Tyrese Haliburton just loses it out of bounds. You then have the Celtics gifted an opportunity to try and tie this game up, but instead, Derrick White misses a shot. Jayson Tatum misses a shot. They have to use a take foul. Pacers aren't in the bonus quite yet. They have to inbound, and they decide to go ahead and once again choke right back. They throw the ball out of bounds off the hands of Pascal Siakam, so the Celtics have once again been given a golden opportunity to try and tie this game up, and luckily enough for them, Jaylen Brown is ridiculous, hitting a crazy 3 over Pascal Siakam. Rick Carlisle said he told Siakam to foul so that they couldn't get the 3-point shot off, but that he never had a great opportunity, and I don't blame him really, because Jaylen Brown was poised to go ahead and shoot at any moment. If he swiped down, it easily could have been a 4-point play, so I don't necessarily blame him. The Pacers end up getting a pretty rough look from Tyrese Haliburton at the buzzer to try and go ahead and take this game in regulation. Instead, it goes to overtime, where more insanity continues to happen. It was kind of a back and forth overtime period. Tyrese Haliburton opened it up with a three. Jaylen Brown hit a layup. Tatum grabbed some free throws. Haliburton also grabbed some because he got fouled on a three-point shot by Derrick White, which is an ill-advised contest. Then you have Jayson Tatum going on a personal 6-0 run with an and one and a step back three to go ahead and basically put this one out of reach, especially when they got a turnover. Derrick White goes ahead and hits a layup, and the Celtics do hold on to win this one 133 to 128 in overtime. It was not pretty. It should have been way easier than this, but the Celtics do take a 1-0 lead. Games like this are why a lot of people don't believe in the Celtics. I'm not one of them. I think the Celtics team is really good, but easily the thing that gives me the biggest pause with this squad is their fourth quarter offense. They're just ability to fall apart at the worst possible moments. I don't know how they always do it, but it feels like they completely forget how to play basketball when you get to the final few minutes. They forget everything that got them to that point. They force shots up. They're doing ill-advised things. They're turning the ball over. They fall apart defensively. It's just weird how it continues to happen. And it's been happening with the Celtics for years at this point, regardless of who the coach has been, who's been on this team surrounding like Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They've always had this issue. It's okay here in the Eastern Conference where competition is pretty weak for the most part, but that's not going to fly in the finals. Whether you're playing Dallas or Minnesota, they need to be way sharper. And I think a lot of it does start with Jayson Tatum. I made that video recently basically saying that the Celtics have a Jayson Tatum problem, and the problem I mentioned in that video is he is their best player. He's really, really good, but they need him to be a bit more consistent, specifically in those final moments. Like I said, he was 2 of 7 in the fourth quarter, didn't score a lot down the stretch. He was, credit to him, great in overtime. He had 10 points there, was their leading scorer, and did finish with 36, 12, 4, and 3 on 46% shooting. Like, not a bad game. Absolutely not. But in that fourth quarter, when they need him most, he's got to be better. He often reverts to three-point jumpers. The Celtics as a whole just for some reason fall in love with the three ball rather than attacking the basket, where they have, wings that have strength with JT, with Jaylen Brown. They've got bigs who are capable of putting the ball in the basket too. I don't know why they just completely forget that they're allowed to go inside the paint at a lot of those moments late in games. And even when they do get there, they'll miss pretty easy shots that they typically make. It's a concern. They have to be a lot better in it. Luckily for them, the Pacers also try to choke this one away too. And I do have to give credit to the Celtics. They didn't just get lucky because the Pacers choked. They also made it happen. Specifically, that shot from Jaylen Brown was huge. It was his only three-point shot of the night. Finishes with 26, 7, 5, and 3 with a block. 50% shooting. He was really good. Has continued to be pretty underrated for the Celtics this season. Jrue Holiday had maybe the best game out of anybody. 28, 7, and 8. 3 steals on 63% shooting, 4 of 8 from deep. This is why you get him between the elite defense on this Pacers offense, as well as his ability to not always, but sometimes have these really good scoring nights. Derrick White didn't shoot the best, but did finish with 15 and 9 assists. Horford, like I said, was kind of getting torched, did shoot 3 of 12 from deep with 15 points, 6 rebounds. They definitely need Kristaps Porzingis back by the time the finals roll around. I think they'll be fine in this series, even if he doesn't come back till around game 4, which is when it's rumored he's going to return. But to be the best version of themselves, they need KP. He's just way more reliable than any of the other bigs that they have, whether it's shooting, it's the defense, because they really could use some more rim protection. The Pacers were not really deterred by anybody in this game. The offense still continue to look ridiculous from them. When Kristaps comes back, I think that completely gets erased, but for the moment, the Pacers need to try and steal games. And while the Celtics were definitely unserious in this game, the Pacers were maybe more so. The amount of turnovers and just bad plays that they made down the stretch was ridiculous. And I think a lot of that comes back to the inexperience with this team. They've never been in this spot. Now, Siakam has, and he ends up having a pretty good game, 24 points, 12 rebounds, and 7 assists, but some really bad plays down the stretch. 5 turnovers from Aaron Nesmith, who ends up fouling out. Tyrese Haliburton finishes with 25 and 10 assists, but shoots just 44% from the field and did turn the ball over 3 times, including 2 really rough ones in the fourth quarter and overtime. Nembhard had 12 points. He was pretty good. Miles Turner, maybe their best player tonight, 23 points and 10 rebounds on 70% shooting. TJ McConnell continues to be a beast off the bench. Like, the Pacers did a lot right in this game, and they got right there to the finish line. There was everybody tweeting that the Pacers won game 1. They were saying, oh, how will the Celtics respond in game 2? Credit to the Pacers. They went on the road and took one against the Celtics, and then they completely collapsed. Again, I think that's the inexperience. Rick Carlisle blamed himself for not taking a timeout late in this game to go ahead and advance the ball. I think he was referring to that Andrew Nembhard turnover with Pascal Siakam that ended up leading to the Jaylen Brown 3. So there's also some questions with him in terms of his coaching in this series, or at least here to open up game 1. Pacers had a shot, but they just were not able to slam the door shut. And there's two ways you can take this. One way is that, hey, the Pacers competed with the Celtics on the road. This could be a good sign for them making it a long series. And on the other hand, you can take a look at this as a massive lost opportunity that then the Celtics might build off of and go ahead and turn this into a sweep or win in 5 games. Honestly, I think I'm kind of leaning toward that second option, especially with Kristaps eventually returning in this series. I think this might have been the Pacers' one chance to go ahead and steal this and try and make this a more interesting series, but now the Celtics smell blood in the water, and they are prone to, again, making things way more interesting than they need to be, but I do think the Celtics are going to finish this in 4 or 5 games. The Pacers are just showing their inexperience and definitely did show it tonight. With all that being said, those are my takeaways from Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Let me know down below in the comments who you have winning this series and in how many games. What were your biggest takeaways? Do you think this was a good sign for the Pacers or a bad sign? And for the Celtics, do you think it's impressive that they stayed resilient and won a game where they struggled, or do you continue to be worried about their clutch inabilities and their ability, I guess, to make things way harder than they have to be? Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. I appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.